Hi and welcome to Industry Insights. I'm your host Tom Betts. Today our special guest is production buyer Kath Husband. We're going to be talking to her about her work and her experiences in the industry. Okay. Welcome to the show, Kath.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. So could you tell us a little bit about what your job is, what it entails, and how you came to be doing it as well?
So as a production buyer, sometimes known as a props buyer or a set decorator, essentially I'm a facilitator. It's my job to artistically interpret a designer's design of any given space, be that a location or a set build. My job is small handheld action props right through to large set dresses of any type of set. Everything that you see, I have to physically be able to get and produce for the show.
And how did you come to be doing that job? How does that happen for you?
I came from a theatre background. Right. My training was stage management, but propping was always the thing I was most interested in. And I'm always very interested in characterisation and what you can take off the page when you read a script.
So you must read them very carefully, just kind of looking for the little cues.
I used to do that where I was just looking for handheld props. Now I read a script and from it I budget a whole episode or budget a whole series of things, really, because when I read a script I read it very differently to every other role. I'm looking at every vehicle, every stunt, every potential set build and all of the problems and all of the cost implications that come with that, because my job is to run the art department budget.
Right. So this is a huge amount of things you have to get for your job. How do you source them?
Lots of different varieties of ways that I source my props and my set decoration, and that is like anybody else would, from lots of different shops, but I also have lots of contacts who in various industries that I can call on. I use Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Amazon, all of those things, but I also use prop hire companies too.
Okay. And I know that one of the big sources in sort of the local industry in Cardiff and South Wales is Celtic Prop Hire, is that right? And so
yes, and I do use Celtic. Being on our doorstep rather than having to travel to London for props makes that very, very useful.
And what was the last thing you hired from Celtic? We're about to see a short film, but I just... Yeah.
Oh, the last thing I hired from Celtic was for a production called In My Skin for BBC Three, and I hired a telephone box. Not because I needed a telephone box, but I had an ATM machine that I needed to put on a street, right, rather than in a wall, because for filming purposes it's so much better with your camera angles to film around it. Okay. Rather than just having a random ATM machine sat in the middle of a precinct, we put it back to back with a public telephone.
Great. So we're going to see a short film about where you got that phone from. So here's the VT.
Celtic Prop Hire started out in 1999. And we've been trading ever since. We moved to our present building in Ely in 2.5 years ago, and things are just getting busier. Celtic Prop Hire generally provides props to all the productions filming locally, because we've got Dragon Studios now, we've got Bad Wolf, we've got the New Pinewood, we've got BBC in the Bay, so everything that films locally. So Bad Wolf at the moment are doing a Discovery of Witches and His Dark Materials, so we've got props on both of those productions. We've got props on Netflix productions such as Sex Education and The End of the Effing World. And there was a Netflix movie a couple of years ago called Apostle. We have props on that. So big companies. South Wales is certainly being taken seriously as a filming location and a location that can supply the trades to support the film industry. Prop is anything from a mug to a life-size dinosaur and everything in between. So we try and cover everything, because we're the only big prop hire company in South Wales. We get props from a lot of different sources. So we can get props off eBay. We can find a contact. We recently worked with a carpenter who made us a cart, and he's a local carpenter, so that's one way. Amazon, we buy stuff off, Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace, and then you kind of, as through the years, you build up contacts for specialists. So we know people to go to for taxidermy, for example. The process varies for the customer. So film and TV productions are very much last minute, so they won't have time to make an appointment and come in and choose the props, and then we give them a quote, and then they decide yes or no, or reduce the amount of props they want. That's very much in the moment. Film and TV these days generally will come in, if we're lucky, the day before and want props for the next day.
There you go. That looks amazing. They've got so many things there. I mean, I wasn't planning to hire a dinosaur, but if I did want to, then I know where to go. So, I mean, I think because for people who don't know your job or are just starting to consider it, what is your current schedule like? I mean, what are you working on now? And also, what is your kind of daily and weekly schedule like?
Okay, so currently I'm at BBC Casualty, which is always interesting because in order to have a casualty, you have to have a stunt. That makes the logistics of my job very different to what I do on a more contemporary domestic kind of production. I work closely with a lot of prop makers and with stunt coordinators in order to create a stunt visually on TV. We still have to do it with health and safety in mind, so it has to be safe. So I have an awful lot of soft makes made. I have fantastic prop makers who make me soft floors, soft railings that somebody might be impaled on, soft knives that might have to go through people's fingers, or there's lots and lots of variations within that work.
And do you enjoy those challenges? It must be quite an odd thing to kind of specialise in.
I enjoy the logistics of how you have to think completely around the prop when it comes to, you have to really think about how the actor or stunt performer needs to use that prop and how that prop works. So for instance, I had a stair fall with a stunt performer, but the stunt performer was playing a paparazzi photographer who had a very long lens camera around their neck. There was no point before the stunt that actor takes it off takes it from around their neck. So I had to create a soft version of the actual paparazzi camera. You want a soft version that isn't gonna concertina on camera, because then your audience will immediately know that's not real. But it needs to be safe for that stunt performer to do what is one of their most difficult things that they do, which is a stair fall,
right,
without hurting themselves and obviously without strangling themselves with something around their neck.
Of course, yeah. So there's a lot of kind of experimentation, I guess, and does it get easier as the job goes on?
It does get easier as the job goes on,
right,
and you learn different techniques of how to create various things. I have a lot of people get impaled on things a lot in BBC Casualty,
right,
and have a lot of knife makes and things like that, and that I don't just work with stunt coordinators, then I also work with makeup as to how they're going to put latex skin to hide how that particular piece is protruding from someone's body.
Sure. It's really interesting. So for people who are watching this who are either currently studying or just recently graduated and kind of looking to get into the industry, do you have any advice about things they can do sort of professionally or personally to kind of move forwards?
I think your training is a great place. I think maybe by the end of your 3 years, you generally have, hopefully, got to a point where you feel that you're at that highest level. I think what you have to understand is when you move into the industry, you've then got people with 20 or 30 years worth of experience, and you have to accept that you go back to the bottom of the pile,
right, and
you learn again and you start again. But you do it with the confidence that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't trained. And you do it with an open mind, I think, and you have to leave your ego behind, and you have to accept that you've still got an awful lot to learn. I'm still learning. I learn every day.
Right. And for people who, just briefly, for the people who kind of impress you on set, what are the best qualities in someone coming to production for you?
I think anybody who's really willing to listen. I think people who show initiative, and are personable. It's a very personable industry, and so to be quiet doesn't always help you.
Right.
You need to be Certainly within the art department, we like characters.
No, we too. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. This has been incredibly
you.
useful, and I hope, I'm sure we're all going to learn from this great advice. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.